welcome to another Datastage tutorial with Learn at Knowstar. In today's video, we are going to take a look at an example to see how to use the schema file in a sequential file stage. So let's get started. So first, let's take a look at the data that we would be working with. So the data is something like this, and if you take a closer look, we will see that there are two records. These records are comma delimited, so this is a delimited file, and there are records which are strings. There are certain records which have numeric values. So this looks like this is a name column, then you have an address over here, then you have some value fields over here which are numeric, and the last field that you can see over here is a date column. Now the next step is to define a schema file to be able to read the metadata of this data. Now this is how a schema file is defined. This is the format of the schema file. The very first statement that you need to write is called record, and then you have to use curly brackets and define the formatting options. Now this is something similar to what you do on the formatting tab of the sequential file stage. So you have to define the final delimiter, which in our case is going to be n. Then you have to define the delimiter. So this is a comma separated file, so this is going to be a comma, and there are no quotes involved in this file, so the quote would be defined as none. All this has to be defined within curly brackets. The next step is to define the metadata, which is basically the column names and the data types. So within brackets, get started with the column names. The first column is called name, and the data type for that is going to be string max 255. Now this format basically means that it is going to be a varchar 255 column. The second column that we have defined here is called address, and we've also defined this as a nullable column and again as a varchar column. The third and fourth columns we have defined as integer columns, and the fifth column we have defined as a date column. Okay, all this has been defined within brackets, and after every column name there is a colon, then there is a data type defined which also has a fixed format. So every time you define a schema file, you need to follow this format. Now in your case, there might be columns which have data types which are different than these data types that we have defined in this example schema file. So in that case, just go to the IBM library or IBM research material, and you will be able to find out. So what we define as a schema file is simply an .osh file, which is the orchestrate file. All right. So at the backend, basically Datastage converts it into this format even when you define it in a sequential file stage. So for any help that you need with defining the data types, you can refer to this link. I'll post this link in the description below. So as you can see, if you scroll down, you will be able to see that strings can be of different types. So the very basic division is like a character or a varchar. So if you have to define a fixed length string, then you have to just define the length within square brackets. But if you have to define a varchar string, then you have to define this in this format in which we have defined in our schema file. So max equal to length. All right, let's go back to a schema file. All right, so this is the format in which we have defined max equal to and length. All right, so this is the format in which you need to define. You can get help with other examples of the data types as well. So this is basically the format that you need to follow for defining your different data types. Now, once you have defined your data types, the next step is to go and start designing the job. So let's get started with that. So this is the basic design that we would be using. You have the sequential input stage. If you click on it, you would be able to enter the parameter file name. If you enter the file name, then go to the options and go to the schema file in the available properties to add. Once you go to that file and click on it, the schema file option would be added here. Then you have to click in this box and start writing the location where your schema file exists. Once you have done that, you would see it over here. Come into the schema file option, then go to the output tab and go to the runtime column propagation. Click on it. All right. Next stage that we're going to go to is going to be the transformer stage. Click on the transformer stage. Again, go to the output tabs of the transformer stage. You would get an option over here which is called the runtime column propagation. You do not need to define any columns anywhere in the transformer stage. Now, if you go to the output stage, you just need to define the target file path. Okay, once we have defined the target file path, we are going to compile the job and execute the job. Alright, once you execute the job and view the data in your target file, it would be something like this. So this has got quotes and commas. So if you go back to the sequential file output stage, you will see that the formatting is the default formatting. So again, you need to go to the options here, click on the schema file option over here, go to the schema file, define your schema file path as we defined previously, and then go back and execute the job. Alright, once the job has executed successfully, go and do a view data and you will be able to see the data coming in correct format. So this is as simple as that, using a schema file to read the data using the sequential stage. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you found this video useful, then please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be posting many more videos soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.